Welcome to Around the Track, the most exciting 15 minutes in wealth management by Dynasty Financial Partners and hosted by CEO Shirl Penney.
Hello, and welcome to another edition of Around the Track, the most exciting 15 minutes in wealth management. I am thrilled with this episode because I'm joined by a longtime colleague within the RIA ecosystem, and I'm happy to say a great friend, Tim Oden. And Tim, thanks so much for being here. I'm going to read your title because you keep getting promoted. It's such a huge title. I don't want to offend you by getting it wrong. So Tim Oden is the Senior Managing Director of Advisor Services, where he runs business development and all new client acquisition for the largest custodian in the space. So that's a big job, a lot of experience, Tim. So congrats on that, and thanks so much for being here.
Thank you, Shirley. I appreciate the invite. And you should know, after all of our years working together, it takes a heck of a lot more than mispronouncing my title to offend me.
All right. With that, we're going to jump in because the only rule we have is we have to, in less than 15 minutes, make our way around the virtual track that you see behind me with 8 questions. Each question represents one of the furlongs on that mile track. So we're going to go ahead and jump in.
And they're off.
And the first question for anyone who isn't familiar with Tim Oden, tell us a little more about yourself.
Yeah, so I've been with Schwab for just over 35 years. Which seems really difficult considering how young I am. The reality is that I have been involved with and have grown up professionally within the RIA community since its inception. And so it's become not just a professional pursuit. It is a great deal of how I see the world and how how I talk about the growth of Schwab and the growth of this business and all of the partnerships, including the partnership with you and your firm, Shirl. And so it's been an incredible 35 years. Beyond that, a large family, as we all do, that supports every one of our investment of time into this space and continue to be the rock and the reason why I do all of this. So, that's a little bit about me.
All right, I appreciate that. So 35 plus years of experience, having been around from the very early days of the RIA space. This is the type of perspective that I am very excited to be able to share with our audience. And I do want to also highlight the partnership that we have with Schwab. You guys have been an amazing partner to us and just terrific advocates of the entire RIA space for so long as one of the biggest voices in the space. So I think I speak for the entire ecosystem when I say thank you so much for that. Yeah. All right. So second question, right? So you have this tremendous perspective. You've been in the space a long time. You could be doing anything right now, but you continue to do what you're doing. What has you so excited today about the industry and about the RIA space?
Yeah. What's interesting is that so think about, first of all, what motivates us to get up every day? And the reality is that this is still a relationship business. And I appreciate that. And while we have grown in size and complexity and capabilities, as the ecosystem, as you mentioned, has grown and more people have become advocates for the independent advisor, there's a theme that continues to pervade from day one till now, and that is this kind of spirit of entrepreneurialism. Each advisor's business is a unique set of challenges, is motivated by unique needs, unique characteristics, unique concerns, and challenges that advisor and the clients they serve bring to the table. And so for us, it's really critically important that we never lose sight of the uniqueness of each advisor, right? I know you and I have spoken about this over the years, Shirl, and it is every deal is new and every challenge seems to be new, but that's where we get our energy of being able to rise to that challenge and to be able to create a solution that isn't one size fits all, right? That it is a customized concierge level solution for that advisor and their clients. That's what's exciting about this business and the entire independent model.
One of the things that I really enjoy about spending time with you is, I think if somebody were sitting with us and observing the conversations we have, I think they would say that both of us are never satisfied, right?
That's right.
And we're always talking about where our businesses are going or where the industry is going.
Right.
And oftentimes, I reflect on those conversations when something happens and I'm like, you know what? Tim told me that was going to happen 2 years ago, and here we are. So my next question is, I'd love to hear your view from a vision and looking forward perspective. What are some of the things, let's look 5 years out, that have you so excited about the space that we're in?
Yeah, it's a wonderful question. And be honest with you, it's where, I get the most excited because first of all, if you were going to come up with one word, it'd be growth. But growth means different things to different people. For me, when I think of growth, you can look at the independent model as growing in terms of assets and the number of advisors and the ecosystem that supports that. And I think, our collective history over the last 5, 10, 15, 20 years has really pointed to the fact that that's kind of the no-brainer. All right, it's growing, right? It's the preferred wealth management model. And it will continue to be the preferred wealth management model because of its ability to be able to be so targeted in terms of the types of clients and the types of services and all the millions of different iterations of support that an advisor can put together to cater to their unique client base. That will continue to be there. But what's beyond that, when I think of growth, I think of the growth in advocacy for end clients and advisors. I think of the growth in the new thinking, the new energy, the enthusiasm, the intellectual capital that comes into this space, where it's not just about early on, a little bit of history lesson. Early on, we had to spend a great deal of our time trying to educate people that there was a difference in the independent model from the affiliate model. And people didn't understand, well, am I working for you if I use the Schwab platform? And we'd spend an enormous amount of time explaining that. Look how far we've come. That's not the way it works anymore. And everybody has this general understanding because we've done such a great job. You've done such a great job, Shirl, of advocating and educating the constituents, the clients, the prospects, the people that are in this space about what it has become. That's going to continue to grow. And we're going to continue to get smarter. And in that intelligence, we are going to come up with more viable solutions for clients and owners of wealth. And we're going to do so increasingly with more scale, more efficiency, more flexibility, more mobility, all of those things that we will all benefit, a true win-win scenario.
It definitely, it seems like all roads are continuing to lead to the RIA space. And, as you know, we launched Dynasty Connect recently, and the amount of traffic that is now happening on our website where the end consumer is coming in because they fundamentally understand, to your point, Tim, that there is benefit to them to get their advice separate from where products are manufactured and sold. And more consumers are looking for that connection to an independent advisor. But let me just quickly reverse the question because I'm curious to your view here. Looking out over the next 5 years, what are you most concerned about?
It's a good question as well. Not surprised. You ask a lot of good questions. You get at the heart of the matter. And really, I think there's a lot of us in this ecosystem that share this concern. And that is something I would call purposeful obfuscation of the word independent and independence. Has more affiliate or traditional players enter this space, I'm concerned that they start to co-opt the term independent advisor. And the reality is that in doing so, it makes all of the wealth management models look and feel the same. When in fact, there are, as you just rightly called out, such a tremendous amount of difference between the motivation, the compensation, the transparency, the standards, right? When you think about the fiduciary standard, that's a critical differentiator. And does that become less obvious, less transparent to owners of wealth? And so that they can't make a thoughtful decision about where or who they want to work with. Listen, the BD affiliation doesn't mean it's bad. It's absolutely not. It just means that you have to have transparency about what the differences in the models are and allow people the right to make an intelligent, informed decision for who they want to receive advice from and guidance. So I worry that that story gets more opaque, and that costs not just you and I, who are such vocal advocates for the independent space, but it costs the owners of wealth and the advisors that serve them. And I think that would be a lose-lose for everyone. And so I think that's what worries me the most.
Yeah, that is so good. And you're right. Completely agree. All right, we're starting to make the turn here, headed towards the home stretch. We'll pick up the pace here a little bit. You talked about growth earlier. And when I think about growth in the RIA space, you have to think about Schwab. The tremendous growth, both organically and inorganically, within the RIA space has been unbelievable. As you said, over the past 30 years, the last 10 years, 5 years, there's just incredible acceleration. And the result is you have a massive scaled business. So I'd love to hear what are some, and with great power comes great responsibility, but what are some things that Schwab is doing to take advantage of that scale and leverage it in a way that helps advisors that are on the platform?
Yeah, it's that's something we spend a great deal of time discussing, Shirl, which is, it's one thing to be the biggest, but what does being the biggest mean? Why is that valuable? They're beyond bragging rights. Who cares, right? And nobody should care, except for the fact that when you're larger, you have that responsibility to do different things. Now I could tell you about how we continue to use our size and our scale to be able to drive the cost of accessing our platform down. And, I go back to things like going to zero commissions on equities and ETFs, a great example of that, right? And so the pressure is always on, how do we deliver economic scale and benefits to the owners of wealth that the advisors we serve choose to serve? And so we'll continue to do that. But I think there's, building a little bit on my last answer, I think we've always believed that if you're participating in this ecosystem, you have a responsibility to advocate for the advisors and the partners and the investors that make up the rest of the ecosystem. In other words, when I was talking before earlier about the fact that, listen, we can kind of make less transparent the difference between the models. We all have to advocate to create greater transparency, but that transparency goes beyond simply our marketing and our advertisements. It goes into our advocacy in Washington with our lawmakers to make sure that they understand there's a difference. And how do they support this transparency model and the independent model? Getting them to understand that this is for the benefit of investors, the more transparency, and this fiduciary standard is such a meaningful difference. That's, I think, on all of us. We try to use our size to influence things like that. But it goes beyond that as well. Shirl, you and I have talked about before, how do we create greater visibility into the independent space as a career option for young professionals leaving, colleges that are looking for that place that they can invest their time and get a meaningful return on that investment? And so how do we get into the universities? How do we get into the high schools and teach them not just financial literacy? That's an important one, but how do we teach them that this is a place for them to consider for their careers? What a wonderful place. It's been, you and I have been blessed with success in this industry, but how do we transfer that to the next generation and the generation after that? I think that's what being big in this space means, is you have a responsibility to think about who's going to take the baton up next. And so we're spending a great deal of time worrying about that, because you mentioned, there's a responsibility. It's a privilege to be in a position to be able to influence all of those things simultaneously. And I know I share this with you. We all get out and try and advocate on behalf of the industry because it's in our best interest, but the interest of the clients we jointly serve.
Absolutely. So look, I think what everyone is learning, or one of the things they're learning about Tim Oden, is he certainly does not lack passion for this industry that we're in. So thanks for that.
Yeah.
You have this great kind of perch, if you will, within the industry, because you get to interact with, help launch, then ultimately support and grow some of the best run businesses. And I'm being very deliberate in using that term business, not just an advisory practice, but real businesses and brands that are being developed. So I'd love to ask you, Tim, what are some of the things that you're seeing the businesses that are run, let's say, just a little bit better? What do they do maybe in a more crisp, sharp way versus maybe what some of their competitors do?
Sure. Well, let me start by saying, so we this, Shirl, we have a benchmarking study, and it's the largest study of the in the RIA space, where we actually, the luxury of being large is we have a lot of our RIA clients. And so we send them this benchmarking study and we solicit their opinion on an enormous range of topics. We then have the ability to bring those answers together and sort through and churn through the data to be able to understand what are top performing firms doing differently. So very directly to your question, we churn through this data and we kind of ask the question, does scale make this big difference? Is it about education? Is it about the type of constituencies, the type of service model? First of all, as kind of a little bit of context, if you look at the top performing firms, let's say that's the top 20%, it's obvious they grow assets faster, right? That's fairly obvious. What isn't obvious to the extent that they're able to monetize that growth. And so if we look over the last 5 years, the top performing firms are growing their revenue more than 200% faster than everybody else. And so they're able to make these changes and monetize them. And that becomes a critically important differentiator, Shirl, as you know. So what are they doing? This isn't rocket science. This is really basic, and it plays out over and over again. Is they have a keen focus on the activities that support new client growth, such as having an ideal client profile, a client value proposition, and being able to use a written marketing campaign, written marketing plan. So what we found is that if you look at the top performing firms, I'm going to get this right. It's a stat that's been floating around in the back of my head, so I apologize. It's going to be pretty close here. RIAs that have documented, literally taken the time to write down their ICP, their ICP, their CVP, and their marketing plan, attract 50% more clients. That one I know because it was an easy round number, but 62% more assets. So not only are they growing the number of clients, but they're growing the clients in a way that is more wealthy clients. So that's really interesting. And they simply just wrote it down. That's amazing. Now, here's one final nugget. I've got to mention this to you, because what we have found is that every size firm is represented in that cohort of the top performing firms. Every single size you can imagine. So this isn't as much a question of scale as it is a question of having the knowledge and the experience to be able to document who you are, what you provide of value, right? And have a plan for taking advantage of that. I know this is important. Shirl, you and I have spoken about, it's one of the valuable things that Dynasty helps clients with. We do as well. It is so important to make that difference for people.
Awesome. Thank you, Tim. Look, you've been a leader, as we've talked about, in the space now for quite some time. Listening in are a number of new leaders. Maybe people are launching their business for the first time and evolving from an advisor to a CEO. So let me ask you a practice management question. How do you think about your leadership style and philosophies, and how has it evolved perhaps over time, as you become more experienced as a leader?
Yeah, what I would say is this: is that early on in my leadership career, I felt like I had to drive solutions. And if I've evolved, I have evolved to the point where I realize that what I can drive is limited to what I can carry. What I can influence in mentoring and guiding and providing context to other leaders allows me to lift heavier, because we are lifting as a team instead of as an individual. So that's one of the things that I've learned over time. But I've got to, tying back to the theme of your event, I have to say this is that one of the most meaningful books that I ever read was on cowboy leadership, tying it back to the horsemanship. And I try to live by the cowboy code as best I can. Shirl, I know you do as well. And it goes like this: I live each day with courage. I take pride in my work. I always finish what I start, and I do what has to be done. I'm tough, but I'm fair. And when I make a promise, I keep it. I ride for the brand. I talk less and say more. I know that one's hard for most people to believe, but it's true. And I remember that some things aren't for sale, and I always know where to draw the line. It's those things, Shirl, that I try to live up to every day. So simple, but so meaningful.
All right, the shout out to the cowboy. What a great transition. We didn't talk about this in advance, but you just gave me a great transition to our last question.
Yeah.
And to tee it up, as you well know, this time of year in particular, there's a lot of horsemen, jockeys, trainers, owners, getting ready for the Kentucky Derby, which is the first leg of the Triple Crown, and they want to move on to the Preakness and ultimately the Belmont Stakes, right? The dream of anyone that's in that space is to have a horse that ultimately can win the Triple Crown. That's like the big pinnacle goal within the space. So I'd like to ask you, as we conclude our time together, what is your Triple Crown? What is that thing that's out there that's a stretch goal or something that has you so excited to run towards, that would feel like, in large part, you've made it within your profession?
For as far as we've come, in our understanding of workflows, our understanding of technology, working with partners to create integrated tech stacks, Shirl, so much of our time is still, as an industry, spent trying to figure out how to get things done, how to do stuff, which means we have less time to figure out how to relate to people, whether it's our clients, our colleagues, our partners like you and I, the rest of the industry. We are still so focused on how to get the systems and transactions done that it robs us of the ability to do the things that make wealth management so meaningful. And that is creating trusted relationships, investing the time that it requires to be trusted and to earn that trust. We still are spending too much time in this wonderful industry doing stuff, and we have to get better at that. It's a fragmented industry, which is what makes it hard. But we have to all collectively sign up for it and say, I want to work with everyone, not based on your business card, to make transactions a thing of the past, to just allow them to occur safely, accurately, and they are a byproduct of the consulting relationship and the trust, not what we spend the majority of the time. That's what I think we have still left on the table. And I think it's doable. We just all have to work together on it.
Awesome. Well, Tim, thank you, my cowboy friend. I have very much enjoyed this time together. You certainly ride incredibly well for the brand at Schwab. And thank you to all of your colleagues for the support of not only Dynasty, but the entire RIA ecosystem. We so much appreciate it. And thank you to all of you for joining us again for another episode of Around the Track.